down here, John, because
You're at the clinic?
played on one of your tunes back during last
Oh,
semester.
which tune did you play?
Putting down the torch.
Wow. Oh my God. I got to tell you,
Down here,
I was
John, because
blown
he
away by that.
Thank you.
I really was. Like not many people take that one on. So nice work.
I'm going to let everybody in.
Okay.
And over here, just so you know, he's not on camera, but my wonderful young student here, actually he's kind of old now. I'm going to tell him he's old. Uh,
Bro.
we call him Texas,
Down.
but anyway, he's happy here to be here too.
Yeah.
Right
Very
on. Well,
cool.
welcome.
Yeah, the both of them.
Hello there. If you're joining us, we see Eminem, we see Michelle, and we see Michael. So some people drift in a little later.
Yeah,
Some
actually,
come in
Eminem,
at 7.
Eminem, I think if you wouldn't mind muting your microphone until it's your turn to talk, that would be really helpful. Thank you.
I still hear a little feedback. I wonder why.
I wonder if
Yeah,
it's mine.
oh, whatever
No,
that
it's
was,
gone.
it fixed it.
I think it was me.
Okay.
We got some people watching on YouTube. Oh, Dustin's coming in.
There's Dustin. And I know we have a couple of other people that who are going to be coming in. And so we're on YouTube as well?
Yeah.
Hi, YouTube!
Hi,
Yay!
YouTube.
That's amazing. So tonight, Julie, if you could hand me those books. So for tonight for Guitar Club, we have a very special guest, a guy I've known since the early '90s. Is a guitar player by the name of Alan Robinson, who, yay!
I wish we had one of those buttons with the applause.
Yeah. So
We need to do that next.
So Alan was a student at Berkeley back in in the days when I was first starting to teach at Berkeley, and so I got to tell you a quick little thing. One of my methods, if you're familiar with my methods, I've got this way that I teach pentatonics that uses box shapes, and I had taught that system to Alan, who took that approach and ran with it, and like he just did so much with it, just basically mastered it in ways that I hadn't even thought about. And then like a couple of months later, he comes in and he goes, "John, do you remember when we were talking about boxes and pentatonics?" And I said, "Well, yeah." And he goes, "I got something to show you." And he goes, "Triangles." Triangles, man, triangles are and then he went off into this whole thing about using triangles as a way to think about about triads. And he's totally right. Like if like if you think of, that's a triangle, right? And if you make it a minor triad, or
It's an isosceles triangle.
right. So, we, so we got into this whole big conference, and he just kind of went off and like kind of showed this whole system that he had been developing. And then, every so often I would kind of run into him, and he's taken all that stuff. I mean, my point is, what's amazing about Alan took a tiny little seed of an idea that I had and just ran with it. Now, so today, Dr. Alan Robinson teaches guitar over at Belmont University in Nashville, and with it, you can see him with his student Aaron, they're going to play something a little bit. I'm going to turn it over. So these are a couple of books that Alan has written. So this one is The Harmonic Expansion Process, of Rock Guitarist's Guide to Playing Jazz. Ooh. Now, I gotta tell you, I've been looking through it, and it's a deep dive. What's so great is that he first of all, he talks about a particular idea, and then shows several examples that sort of demonstrate like a much more thorough approach to, basically how to play chords, how to think of chords, how to voice lead chords, and then within that, I think that there's some ideas about improvisation. I'm going to let him talk about that. But then,
We also have the Guitarist Guide to Harmonic Expression,
Yes.
Mastering Chord Forms.
yes, okay. So,
Yay.
think of it this way. If you're, this is Mario Kart, the expansion pack times 20, right?
Deep.
So, there's just so much stuff here, which I think is just amazing.
We're excited to share with you guys.
Yeah. So, anyway, so I had the opportunity to go down to Belmont University in Nashville where Alan teaches. He had me down as I guess a guest clinician, and I think I met maybe 50 or 60 of his students, guitar students, and I have to tell you, I was blown away at the program that he has going on down there. Like if these guys are, if these players are an examples of what our future musicians look like, and as far as I'm concerned, our future is safe. So really,
Well, I'd like to check in with everyone. We always like to greet everyone. and
yes, let's do that.
Allow
Let's do that
them
first,
to
and then-
tell
yeah.
us who they are, where they're from, and some exciting guitar stuff that they're into, right?
Yeah,
So before we hear Alan,
yeah.
who wants to go first? Dustin?
Sure, I might as well. You guys can hear me?
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, had a little audio trouble when I logged on there. I think it was set wrong. Alan, pleasure to meet you. My name's Dustin Wixel. I'm from Saratoga Springs, New York. I have been doing this Guitar Club with John and Julie for quite a while, and
I think
picked up
since
quite.
the very first one.
Yeah, I think you're the first.
I think I was at the first one. It's been a while, actually.
A couple of years
I
now.
mean, if you think about it, it's been a couple of years, which blows my mind. But yeah, I'm the guy that's always at Guitar Club and always look forward to this. So pleasure to
Right
meet you.
Welcome. And then we also have Zachary.
Zach
Hello.
has some interesting news to tell us.
All right.
Oh yeah,
But
So-
Zach has a trip coming up. So go ahead, Zach.
yeah. Hi, I'm Zach. Nice to meet you, Alan. I'm one of John's students. I've been taking lessons with him for about maybe half a year now, give or take. And and I've been preparing for an audition for Berkeley. And this week on Saturday, I'm going to be flying up to Boston to do the audition.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. I'm
Yeah.
sure you're feeling prepared and ready to rock.
Yes.
So
yeah.
I'm going to say this. Zach is ready.
Mm-hmm.
He is so ready. It's not even funny how ready he is.
Oh, thank you. You helped me so much. I mean, just the amount of work that I've been doing and you've been helping me out with it's been so helpful. And yeah.
John is a wonderful mentor.
Well, thank you. But the thing is, the value of the lesson isn't what happens at the lesson. It's what happens in between the lessons.
Right.
Right.
You
Yeah.
do the work.
100%.
Yeah, you did
You're
the work.
doing
So
the
that's
preparation.
yeah, definitely.
Awesome. We have Michelle and Michael. Where are you guys from?
So in order to talk, I think you have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, we are. You are
you can.
muted.
Yeah.
Or Eminem.
Yeah. So Eminem.
And then
if you-
Brent?
yeah.
What do you want? Oh, Brent.
Oh, there's Brent. Okay.
Howdy, y'all. I'm helping Alan do sound.
Oh,
Okay,
nice.
right on.
Okay.
Thanks for joining.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining. So Texas, you're also a student of Alan's as well, right? I'm still talking to Brent, right? Or not?
It's fine.
Okay.
All right, no worries. So without further ado, here's Alan Robinson.
Too much. Yeah, Texas is a student of mine too. He's actually been with me for 2.5 years, almost the whole time I've been here. We met out in the hallway in the guitar house one day, and the minute I met him, I knew I was in trouble, and I think he did too, because the first thing I said was, "Oh, you're Texas. You must be from Detroit." And from there on, it all went downhill. Next thing I know, he signed up to study with me, and I've paid for that comment ever since. But no, these two guys, between Aaron and Texas, these guys are great. They keep me humble. Both of them are very, very, very good players. Congratulations on your audition this weekend coming up. That's awesome. Best of luck to you. You've been with John. I know you're going to do great. That's awesome. It's great to meet everybody. John, Julie, thank you for hosting this and allowing me to be on today. I'm really excited about that. Been looking forward to it for the past week. I've been talking to these guys, and like I said, Texas here, he's helping me run the sound in the video, because we're getting ready to do a couple of projects together where he's going to help me out. And I said, well, let's test it out on this show and try to do something worthwhile.
Right on.
So just a quick couple of quick questions. So first of all, how long have you been teaching at Belmont University?
This is my third year here now. So I mean, it feels like 10, but this is my third year. Yeah.
Okay. So and how many guitar students are there at Belmont? Now, first of all, Belmont University is different than Berkeley in that it's a university which covers the whole gamut of academia, where Berkeley is pretty much just a music school. But I have to say, like I said, when I was there, I was blown away at the program that you have going. How many guitar students are there at Belmont?
So I think we have, on average, we have somewhere between like 85 and 100 guitar majors, which is pretty good, because the music performance program, or the performing arts program, I believe we have somewhere around 900 and some this year. And like you said, we're broken up into many colleges. We have a School of Music Business. We have the Curb Recording and Tech Center, and I think both of those have, something like 1,000 students in each of those schools themselves. They're separate apart from the Performing Arts School. But yeah, so we have approximately anywhere from 85 to 100 guitar majors, but we service something like almost close to 200 guitarists in a semester, because we have a lot of people take electives, because even for us, we have about 12 guitar faculty. So myself, and then our guitar coordinator, Paulo Oliveira, who you met, John, when you were down here, Dr. Oliveira. And the rest are adjunct professors that stay completely maxed out on their hours. So we have a lot of students.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So yeah, that it sounds like. So Julie, how many guitar students are there at Shenandoah?
I don't really know.
Okay.
Alan Davin is the one that is in charge of the guitar program.
Oh, I see.
So.
Okay.
But there's 500 students in the conservatory.
Yeah. So a certain
size.
certain component, a certain percentage of that's going to be guitar players.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
And some people that aren't guitar majors still take guitar. Like people in music production, engineering, people in songwriting, people in...
Yeah, and that's what happens here. It's the same kind of thing, because it's just, everybody wants to play guitar. Why wouldn't they? It's the coolest instrument, right? I mean, there's nothing any better. But
that's why we do Guitar Club.
Exactly. So okay, so it looks like you have you have a few things that you want that you want to demonstrate. I'm all ears.
Well, I mean, I could demonstrate a few things, and then maybe Aaron and I will play for you too. I can give you just a, just to piggyback on your story. I always think it's funny when you share the story, because I will say this, John, and I've told you this before, but for everybody else, like, John was a huge influence on me and made a huge impact on the way I looked at the guitar. And so I cannot ever thank this man enough, because it truly changed the way I look at everything. And I think what was so great, and I think, John, when you were down here, one of the things I said to you was, the thing I loved the most about studying with you at the time is I've always thought that you were kind of like out of the box thinker, very abstract. And I know you didn't feel that way, but for me it was just because I like to look at things from the outside, and I loved it because you would always teach with different kinds of analogies and everything to be able to have us look through all these different purviews of study. And I do the same thing today. I think, I don't know, Aaron, do I use a lot of analogies?
No, none at all.
So, I'm always telling them, when you're looking at the guitar, you got to think about being, on the outside of a square room with 4 windows and 4 doors. And when you're looking through that window, you're going to see everything that's on that wall across from you, a portion of these 2 walls, but you don't see here on the side that you're on, and you have to go around to the next window to get the full view. And so when I take them through a lot of exercises, and just the way that I studied myself, especially through John's influence, was that I wanted to take as many looks as I could through as many different purviews that I could of the fretboard. And so with John's pentatonic system, when he showed me that, it really did revolutionize the way that I looked at the fretboard. And I think one of the first things I did with that, John, was when you were showing the shapes, like, and I love to do this with my students, is I don't know if you remember this part of it, but I came up with this idea that I called the mirror image concept, where everything, whether it's major scales or pentatonic scales, was within a mirror. And the way I did that was, John showed me the first shape, and he's like, well, there's a forward trapezoid. And I said, cool. And there's the reverse trapezoid. And I said, cool. And then, he had, box H, and he had box L, and he had the rectangle, and the rectangle up here. And I said, well, this is really cool, because if you look in between the 2 trapezoids, that's a mirror, because it's just reversed. And then you have the boxes on either side, and then you have the rectangles. I said, it's a mirror image. And I thought to myself, that's the coolest trick in the world. And I just kind of branched out from that. And I still use John's system to teach my students. I share this stuff with them all the time. And then I tell them to go buy his book, because I said it's going to be one of the greatest references you could ever have for rock guitars. And what I
thank you. I can eat now because of you. So thank you for that.
Well, I'm trying to even get you some more. Maybe we can get some dessert now.
Is this the advanced modern rock?
Yeah, that's it. That's modern rock.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, the book. I mean, your book adds. What I loved when I got the book was the fact that I could go back to my handwritten notes that you'd given me, and I was like, oh, cool, I've got the originals. It's like I'm gonna bootleg these. But no, I thought it was just great, because you had your pentatonic stuff, you had the magic phone number, which I think that's great. I mean, I share that one all the time and tell them to go do that. And the way you looked at the modes, and it made a huge impact the way I studied the guitar, and some of the ideas that I came up with, because of that, I did start looking at major scales in the same way that the pentatonics, and I saw them in a mirror image as well, going up and down the fretboard. And I think that just sparked me into doing the things like I did with the harmonic expansion process, even though that's based on chords. I can just kind of give a rundown if you want. I mean, I don't want to sit here and just talk everybody's head off, but a rundown of just the basic concept of what the harmonic expansion process is. As I was teaching, this was probably my first college gig back in 2001, and I had a student, and he was a fabulous rock player, but I was trying to teach him how to play his drop 2 chords. And so we were doing like most everybody does, the system. We're gonna go through all the inversions and get them, and then we're gonna go through the cycle and everything. And this young man, he struggled so much with first inversion of drop 2, major 7, and I kept, I was even doing the thing where put your fingers here, put your finger there, moving his fingers, and finally, and he just couldn't get it, and he looked like one of those memes with the jazz memes with the fingers all twisted around them. Yeah, exactly. And I finally just looked at him and I said, dude, look, it's simple. It's an E5 with a C5. And he goes, huh. And he did it. And I said, that's it. And then after I said that, I go, huh. And I went home that night and I was like, well, this is really cool. I never really thought about it like that. And so I started developing this whole system for me to teach through at the time, which was just using stacked power chords. And I thought, well, wow, this is really cool. You know, I could see C5 with E5 as being C major 7. I could see C5 with E flat 5 being C minor 7, which I don't guess is revolutionary, but where I started taking it from there, for me, really changed. Because I started doing, telling my students to use power chords to play changes. So the first thing I did was, instead of looking at power chords as we do as rock players, as a root position type chord, or it's one and only inversion, is I made them look at it as the 3rd and 7th of the chord, because the whole goal was to be able to teach them how to play changes. And so, like, what I did was I said, well, if we got A minor 7, like if we were going to play Autumn Leaves, for example, A minor 7, if I grabbed just that drop 3 voicing that everybody knows, I gutted everything, or I took the guts out of it, which was the C and the G, and said, well, that's a C5, and there's only one inversion. You either got root position or you got the one and only inversion of that 5 power chord. And I started realizing that you could do that for any drop 2, drop 3 chord. And so and again, this is not revolutionary, because I know a lot of jazz guitarists that teach this way, but I made them play just the guide tones to a tune like Autumn Leaves. And all it was all power chords, but thinking about the power chords in a different perspective. And as I did that, I realized that if I started it again, that really what I set myself up was 2 ways of playing a 2-5-1. That way, or that way. And it just became really simple. And then I developed this whole process of adding another string and another string until I developed the whole method. And that's what the book's about. It took me almost 20 years to finally write the book. I wrote several different drafts of it through my master's, back when I did that immediately after coming back to Kentucky after leaving Boston. And I hated that version, and I let it sit around for a while, and then I did the Army thing, and then I came back to it, wrote a couple more versions during my doctorate, and then finally when I got here, it's like, it's time to finish this and put it to rest. So that's kind of just the background of that book.
That's beautiful. So you're breaking it down into the smallest, simplest nugget, each little chord, and then expanding it into different voicings.
Yes.
But, yeah, that's a great way to do it.
The other thing that I decided I wanted to do this because my goal, especially coming from being a rock player, and I still don't even count myself as a jazz player no matter what, but the thing I wanted to do was really take the perspective as a rock player and teach rock players to use skills that we use, which is basic power chords and pentatonic scales. Because I had to justify because when it gets bigger, I stack power chords. So in the other perspective is I looked at it and said, well, I've got to look at it and say, what power chords can I tie together to make a fuller chord? And what I did is, like, I started looking at each individual chord quality, like minor 7s, major 7s, dominant 7s. And what I determined was I'm just going to look at, like, if I'm looking at A minor in the key of G and looking at it as the 2 chord, I'm going to look at every power chord within the key. So if I'm saying G major, so I got G5, G5, A5, B5, C5, D5, E5, F sharp, diminished 5, and then back to G5. And I looked at it and I said, okay, well, what did I learn in theory? I'm going to throw out the avoid note. So any chord that has the avoid note is gone. So in the case of the 2 chord, I took out the 13 or the 6, which would be F sharp. And when I rid myself of those chords, what I ended up with G5, A5, C5, D5, and E5, which is an A minor pentatonic scale. So then I said, I can combine any of those together. And so the first process was I took C5 on my center string set. Let me see if I can get rid of this overdrive here. Maybe that's... Can you all hear that? So my goal was to take 2 string sets. So I'm putting my guide tones on strings 3 and 4, and then I'm going to add additional notes to strings 1 and 2. And the way I did it initially was, if I've got the power chords C, D, E, G, and A, then C is my constant because that's my 3rd and 7th. And then on the remaining 2 strings, on the 1 and 2, that's where my other power chords go. So I went to there and I found that in that vicinity, and I said, okay, well, here's D5, here's E5, here's G5, and here's A5. And then I just married them up. So I had C and D, C and E, C and G, and C and A. And that's the process. That's really it in a nutshell.
Ooh, okay, ready? Hold on. Let's do that one more time. Ready? Go.
Ah.
I don't know how much I have to pay them to do that. But
No, it's so
Nice. I love
it's
it.
it's so cool because you don't you have A minor 7, but then you have all these extra textures that can go on top of that.
yeah,
No,
because
which-
you get all the tensions that way. Because if I do C5 and D5, well, I get an A minor 11.
Yeah.
If I do C5 and E5, I get A minor 9.
Yeah.
And the others are just really variations of that, but combinations. But that's just seeing them as straight up power chords, because I could split them and get chords like that when I split it and get the 11 and the 9 in there on top of it. But it was just kind of a cool initial way of doing that. And that was just looking at power chords. And then when I started breaking it down and going, well, what if I only want 3-note chords? And so I do this whole spiel of triads because I love triads. I mean, I think I don't stop talking about triads in my seminar class with my upperclassmen in my improv class because I think there's just so much power behind them. And so I do this whole thing that I call the evolution of the triad. And by doing that, I come up with a whole nother set of teaching principles. But what it made me do is look at it and go, well, what if I only want 3 notes in the chord? And so I took my process and I broke it down into the book. I think I've got like maybe 6 or 8 different ways I do it, but I call it the +1 method. And so what I'm always just doing is adding 1 note. And the way I do it is I take, again, my guide tones, and I look at the B string next, and I'm like, I'm just going to add 1 note to it, but I got to know what note to do. If I'm looking at A as the 2 chord, then I need to know on the B string, I need to know the G major scale. So, I just kind of know that scale. And then I take my 2 guide tones and I call them caps because I don't need to repeat them. And so what I do is I go to the string and I find C and G, and those are my caps. So what's left between in the scale, D, E, and F sharp, that becomes possible notes to add to that. So I get C and D, or C and E. So I know that's A minor 11, that's A minor 7. If I want it in a Dorian context, then I can have it with the 13. And so that's my +1 method. And then I would just keep splitting that and adding different strings to get it. So that's...
Is this an improvisation technique or more comping?
So it turns out to be both, because what I have my students do after they get that, whether it's with the full power chords, because what happens when they start adding them up is if you really look at, if I'm using the D and the E, for example, on that string, those are also the foundation for the 2 power chords, because that's G5, D5, E5, and A5. And so as I get them to comp, like, Aaron, why don't you just comp just give me like an A minor groove. And what I do is I have them build the chord from that, where we get... way they see all those chord possibilities with 3-note chords and 2-note chords. But then I have them look at it from the perspective of, now that you've got all that, if I start with 3 notes, the 3-note chords, I got this. there, then I just start saying, well, you could see octaves from there. There's B there. I can bring D down to here. You know, and so I take it from the comping perspective to the improv perspective, because the one thing I keep saying to these guys all the time is the harmony and the melody cannot be separate. One doesn't exist in the vacuum without the other, so they have to be one. And if I can see all the chords, then I can see all the scale.
Perfect.
You know, one of the things I really like about this is that it's something I do think about sometimes, is that, well, when the first place, you know, all the stuff that you just demonstrated is all available, and you're not moving your hand. You know, so that means that any key that minor seven is, if you're doing B minor, you just move the whole thing up 2 frets. If it's a D minor seven, then you move it up to the 10th fret, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it also raises something interesting, which is that you've got the chord tones on the 4th and 3rd strings, like in the middle of the guitar, right? Then you've got your extensions on the top 2 strings of the guitar, and then, you know, like the potential bass notes down the bottom. So it kind of divides the guitar into these sort of 3 separate zones. Yeah, you know, that, and sometimes that can be a really useful way to, you know, to think of it, especially if the music gets like dense and complicated. You know, you want to be able to. You know, one of the things I talk a lot with my own students when playing jazz stuff is the biggest thing is learning to not get lost.
Right.
Know where you are in the
you know, that's first and foremost. Like, you know, like once you get past that, then it starts to get a little easier. You know, when I first started playing jazz, that was the thing that really started happening first. It was like, oh shit, where am I? You know. So
it's so easy to get lost, and I know for me, and I still think I'm still trying not to get lost, John. I need to come back and study with you some more.
well, okay.
Somebody
What
give
you
me a
learn
map.
from
I need a GPS.
what you learn from me is how to live in being lost.
All right.
Well, I think especially coming from being a rock player, at least in my perspective, and just knowing my habits, is I think a lot of times we want to throw scales at the chord changes.
Yep.
And you know, your traditional jazz guys like Herb Ellis and Joe Pass and those guys, they saw it through the chord shapes that they were playing.
Yeah.
And I still, you know, so I think that's why I started breaking things back down into triads and these smaller voicings, because for me it just really helped me wrap my brain around it a lot better, trying to play changes, and just, I don't know, it definitely helped my studies of harmony, helped my soloing a whole lot more by doing that. And the cool thing about the zones and the way I think about it, and I do think it's really kind of great, because I think about the guitar almost like 6 different pianos. And so it's like you got all those, you know, 2-dimensional areas coming together, and it's just, it fries my brain. But when I started breaking into the zones, like even with this, when I go through all my methods, you know, I might have my guide tones here, but I also find a way to say, okay, I'm going to put my guide tones on the 4th string and the 2nd string, and then I'm going to add my notes in between. And that's my other kind of add +1 or whatever I call it.
Sounds real spacious.
Yeah, and you get that nice dissonance of seconds and different intervals that you get in there. And then after I get it there, it's like, okay, well, I got C here. Maybe I move, you know, the C and the G there. Now I got this middle string. Same kind of thing until I split them all, and then I take it up the octave. And that's how I get 4 different positions. I play this game with them too, where how many chords was it, Texas, that I came up with in class one day? I was like, we're going to make this the 250 chord idea, because the way I do it is if I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 voicings there, well, that's 7 voicings for A minor, but that's also 7 voicings for C major 7.
Right.
And
Right.
it's also 7 voices for F major 7 sharp 11. And it's also 7 different voicings for F sharp altered 7. So I just went through all these things and I said, by the time you're done, and if I put 8 different roots with it, right there you got 56 chords just based off of that.
Right.
Wow, mind-boggling.
Yeah, there was a book written years ago by George Van Epps called Harmonic Mechanisms for Guitar. It's a 3-volume work. And in the first chapter, he shows these numbers that, like, okay, we've got this many chords, this many pairs of strings, this many sets of 3 strings, 4-string sets, 5-string sets, and then 6-string sets. And then you have, all the possible combinations of frets between 0 and 12 gives you this many chords. And then he does the math where he basically shows that to play every chord possible on the guitar, working at a rate of 1 chord per second would take you over 11,000 years to play every chord voicing. So,
You better get cracking.
yeah, well, his point really was do the deep dive, but don't think you're going to learn all of it because you're just not.
No.
Yeah.
There's
I
just
think I use like 5% of what's in the book.
Right. Right.
John just did a video of 20 voicings of C major 7. Or
Yeah, the
C7.
C7.
I saw that video. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's cool to be able to look at it. I mean, you may not use it all, but I think it's cool to be able to know how to get into it if you want it, kind of thing.
Well, the thing was, what I was thinking about was one of the ways in which I warm up is I'll pick a chord and then see how long it takes me to work out at least 20 ways to do it. So the 20 ways are basically, 8 different fingerings for drop 3, and then 12 different fingerings for drop 2. Right? So, how long does it take me to, to pick a chord formula, do all the inversions, and, it's like doing guitar soda cooking, it's like sort of a mental exercise sort of thing.
I love
Yeah.
that. Well, do you guys want to play a tune? Maybe we'll have time to take a question.
You want to play Windows? Let's start with Windows. We're gonna we're just picking. I picked a couple of tunes that he's been working on for whether it's this semester or last semester, and so I don't know. I get on this Chick Corea kick. I don't know what it is, but Chick Corea was a huge influence on me. So I figure, play piano music on the guitar, just not as good as Chick. So I think we'll do Windows. So you guys get balance there? Is that good over there?
What I was going to say is, are you guys looking for a little bit of overdrive in this song?
We got a little bit going on. Is it too much? Is it coming through too much?
It might be clipping.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Let's see.
What do you think?
It might be.
Is that better?
I think it's okay.
Let's try it like that. See what we can get out of this. Okay. 1, 2, 3.
both you guys like so fluid. And what a great choice because I was thinking about the the harmonic structure of it. Like one of the things that that Chick Corea did a lot was he used like all these harmonic devices that clearly work, but a lot of it doesn't really call. You think about how most jazz standards work. It's like a lot of them kind of come from the Great American Songbook. So songs by Cole Porter and Rodgers and Hammerstein, things like that. And a lot of them use really similar harmonic devices. And then you've got Chick Corea, who's kind of over here doing this stuff. And what I particularly love about it is that the tunes are beautiful,
Yeah.
but they also use harmonic devices that other people don't seem to use quite as much. Like right off the top, there's that G sharp to A7, right? Then it ends in that E Lydian thing,
Yeah.
Love
you
that.
know. Man, both of you, like your improv was so fluid. I love the fact that both of you were like using really different sounds, so it was easy to tell who's doing what. You know, um, one, so one thing, actually, Aaron, I wanted to ask you a question if you didn't mind. Who are you listening for guitar players these days?
Yeah, I mean, obviously being influenced by this guy, listening to a lot of Chick Corea, that sort of thing. Obviously moving into the Frankenballet thing, with his work with the electric band, that sort of thing. My biggest influence at the moment is Jack Gardner, the Liverpool-based guitarist, unless he's moved back to Switzerland. Anyways, he was also very heavily influenced by Gambale, Korea, Tom Quayle, studied with, that
Sure.
sort of thing. Those sort of like modern fusion players, I'm a massive fan of.
Yeah, because I was hearing kind of a lot of a lot of that, like your natural way of phrasing is, I kind of calls to mind guys like Tom Quayle and Mateus Masato and sort of that whole generation. It's great. It's great to, it's great. It was great to hear you play.
Thank you.
So Alan, how about you? Who are you listening to for guitar players lately?
For me here lately, I don't know that I get out of a rut for the guys that I always love, but I think here lately, I mean, in the past few years, I've gotten into more of those British guys like Tom Quell and Jack Gardner and Owain. I guess he's not really British, but and then here most recently is what is his name? I can't remember the guitarist that he was in Megadeth for a while. Kiko
Yeah.
Lorraine.
Libero, sure.
Yeah, Laurel. I never get the last names right, but I've been listening to some of his solo works, and I love that. And then I don't know, me myself, I'm still stuck into a lot of Greg Howe kind of stuff. And
Sure. Well, he's a monster.
oh yeah, I love Greg's stuff. I was fortunate enough. I think it was right as the summer was coming in. As part of my professional development through the university, because they allow us to do different professional development funded. I did like 4 lessons with Greg just for fun.
Whoa! How was
Nice.
that?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I got to do that with him, and then I probably did about 6 lessons with Jonathan Kreisberg out of New York too for some straight jazz stuff. And but it was a lot of fun. And then I did a couple of lessons with Alan Hines. So those are the kind of guys I've been listening to because I'm just kind of all over the place. But most of my play will stay on everything from Gambale to Greg to quite honestly Pat Metheny and Mike Stern.
Ah,
Yeah, man. That's amazing. Well, like what I thought was really cool was listening to the two of you. Like each of you have kind of your own way of framing things, but the mix was working really nicely too.
yeah, you were
Yeah.
listening to each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's gotten really good at catching on, and I don't know if it's because I throw golf balls at these guys, but it's my secret ingredient back here. If you know, Trevor,
Yeah.
Trevor's my buddy in the studio. Trevor, when they're playing and things aren't going just right, Trevor comes out. So
I
he's
do.
my
Get it
sidekick.
together. Right on.
no.
Well, do you want to put a link to your book and stuff in the chat, and maybe your music?
Yeah,
Put
I
it
can.
on the YouTube video as well. And then let's open it up if anybody has any questions.
Yeah, can you do that, Texas? Yeah, has anybody got any questions that I might be able? Well, John, let me ask you this:
Yes.
Did you hear any of your licks in my solo? You should have, because I steal from you. You're my other influence, man. Do you remember this one? Because I do this one. I do this kind of thing all the time, where I go.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. The spread
The
Springer.
classic John Finn
That's
string
John.
skipping arpeggios.
I actually stole that from if I'm honest, I actually lifted that from Carl Hyatt.
Okay,
Yeah,
I can hear that.
He talked about that in one of his lessons. I think it might have been in one of the Guitar Player magazine things. Oh, cool. There it is. The Harmonic Expansion Process, the Rock Guitarist Guide to Playing Jazz. You know, I gotta tell you, I'm glad you wrote it because the world needs that book.
Well,
I
thank
will
you.
put the links in the YouTube video, and also you guys can check it out in the chat.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So all right, you guys. Dr. Alan Robinson is now open for questions.
Let's see if anybody on YouTube
The
has
doctor
any.
is in.
What about our YouTube viewers? Anybody have any questions on YouTube? I'll be watching the chat. See.
It's funny that you said that, John, because these guys are cracking up because we were talking before. So Texas is getting ready to help me with a live show that I'm going to start here in about 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay.
And what it's going to do is it's kind of like this, where I'm going to always have one of my students here at Belmont with me and talk about some things that we do in the lessons, maybe some of the curriculum here. And just different ideas maybe from my books or whatever. And we were joking about, well, what am I going to call the show? And it was kind of like, well, the doctor is in, but we're trying to figure out how to
Yeah.
But
I like it.
I told him though, I don't like to be pompous because I'm just a Kentucky hillbilly.
But that's exactly why you should call it The Doctor Is In. Like I'm totally serious. I think that's what you should,
That's why we call ourselves the experts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because
So
we're
Julie-
like, we're not really the experts, but we act like it. We
I
could.
stayed at a Holiday Inn Express once, so
Yeah.
Right.
There you
that
go.
should count for something.
You have a doctorate though.
So
A PhD.
and the other so on my second full length album, Wicked, there's a series of pieces called the Pompous Music Suite,
Love that album.
right? So it's a trio of 3 pieces that are presented in movements, and that was exactly why I called it the Pompous Music Suite, because stuff like that, like when you start calling it a suite, it automatically kind of feels more highbrow.
I'm so
I've written a
conscious.
suite, not just a piece of music, but a suite.
Sweet.
Sweet.
Right. All right.
So does anybody have any questions? Anything? Or, why I style my hair the way I do?
I'm just happy to be here. I do have a question about the improv.
Yeah.
So the way that, because I like to ask everybody, just kind of get their different styles. So the way that you're kind of thinking about improvisation is, are you thinking more of towards the chord shapes and then kind of leading off of that, or are you kind of thinking more towards scales? It's kind of a combination. I'm kind of curious how you go about that.
I definitely think as a combination a little bit, just because like I said, I definitely think about the scales. I still think about scales because I think, that was kind of the Berkeley thing, chord scale theory. And so, that definitely got ingrained in me when I was doing my undergrad stuff. But I kind of think of different things like I mentioned triads. I really do think about a lot of triad kind of stuff. So like if I've got like that in Windows, if I got that B minor 7 chord, I do these things that I teach my students to play extended arpeggios to get all the tensions that I call modal arpeggios, for a lack of a better name, where I'll do things like if I'm in the key of G major, I'll do A minor. So all of those are just extensions, and I modify them for whatever I need. But really, they are all based off of triads. So that started off with, like, if I had G major 7, G major triad, and they're all root based, by the way. G major on the lower 2 strings. Then I thought about F sharp diminished. I'm just really going across, and really the way the trick works is I think about the root, the 7th, and the 5th. Those are the 3 notes that give me my triads. And so I'd have G major, F sharp diminished, and D major. But knowing that the C doesn't really fit that chord, I just adjust it down to B. And that gets me an extended arpeggio. You could think of it as a B minor 7 over top of G. That's one way. But for all the minor chords, but like back to Windows, if I had B minor 7 rather, or B minor 11, depending on how I'm thinking about it, I might be thinking of it as the 2 chord in the key of A, or I might think of it as the 6 chord or the one minor chord, however you want to think of it at the beginning. But my extended arpeggio is, again, off the root, the 7th and the 5th, so I get B minor, A major, F sharp minor.
Oh, beautiful.
It just really opens up the sound, and it's easy to play because it's 3 triads. And and that's where I do the cheater Frank Gambale stuff with economy picking and sweeping to get it across, because I start seeing my triads where up and down the string sets that way, and that's really the way I make my students kind of work a lot. I mean, Aaron's been doing a whole lot of that this semester. But then I mix it with the scales, just like you said. So I'll be seeing it that kind of way. Because, and the other thing that I see in that, just so you know, when I'm thinking scales, the way I had to break myself from just playing straight up, like just, if I'm seeing just that kind of thing, is I started seeing my scales in modal in fragments, and I think I may have got this from you too, John, where I see them in 2-string fragments, like maybe a Mixolydian thing, or whatever, major, and kind of like the 7-note or the magic phone number. But what more importantly I started seeing out of that for me was to see where all the whole steps lie, because I got into this whole Metheny kick, and one of the things I did is I transcribed Pat's solo to All the Things You Are off the Questions and Answers album. And in that, 38 times he played this lick, which is really like, it could be from any note, but if I use it like A minor, he played from the root, passing through to the flat 7 to the 5th of the chord. He did that 38 times, and he used it in all these different ways. And what I did when I analyzed it, I said, well, it's just a whole step and then the note underneath. And so what I did was I started studying the scale, and I started looking, well, I got a whole note here and a whole note, or a whole step here and a whole step here and a whole step here, and I started filling in the gaps. So when I see something like A minor 7, I see lines like this now. To get all the chromaticism. And so it's just really, it's almost like playing pentatonic. And then I start seeing that and mixing them with my triads. Anyway, that's probably more than you wanted to know, but there you go.
That's
fantastic.
Because kind of what it was making me think was just again that whole thing of like stacked triads for each type of chord, right? So Beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, I just love it. For me, I don't know where I started doing that from, but it made sense because I started thinking about how many different ways to use the triad. I remember it was while I was going to Berkeley, and I lived out in the suburbs of Boston in a town called Ashland, and so I had to keep taking the commuter rail in and out of town.
I
So I'd
remember.
be on that commuter rail for 45 minutes to an hour, and I couldn't get a guitar out, so I did music thinking a lot. And I
Right.
think, John, you got me hooked on that because of Mick's book, The Advancing
Right.
Guitar. And because when John told me to buy that book, it changed my life too. It was like, man, I can think about the guitar. And I was sitting on the train, and it was either in a guitar lesson or it was in theory class, and we were talking about superimposing triads. And so I got on the train and I said, well, what if I took C major, triad, and I superimposed it over top of every chromatic note of the scale. So I went C over C, C over C sharp. And I justified every one of them where I had, well, that's C major. This is, I mean, I could call it a C sharp diminished major 7, or I could think of it as E7 altered with a natural 13.
Right.
D minor 11, E flat altered again. There it is. C major first inversion, F major 9. My favorite is F sharp altered. C major over G, A flat major 7, sharp 5, A minor 7, B major 7, sharp 11. The worst inversion of a major 7 chord over the 7th.
Yeah.
And back to C. And so I was like, well, I justified them all. And so triads all of a sudden to me said, triads rule the world. And so I just started coming up with all that craziness.
Yeah, that's really amazing.
Love it. Push to the limit.
Yeah. Anybody else have any questions? I think we're just about at the point where we have to start thinking about when we're going to meet next time.
Yep. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your music and your wisdom.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm sorry I talk too much.
No, not at all. Not at all. You
We
kidding
all
me?
love this. This is where it's like our once a month geek out,
Yeah.
right? This is what Guitar Club is for.
I love it. I love it what y'all do. I've watched some of your episodes, and I think it's just so cool that you're doing this because it's great that you get a geek out on this stuff. This is awesome.
Yeah. Well, we hope to do more and hope to get better at it. That's a couple of things we're
Keep at it.
sort of talking about.
Yeah. Reach more people.
Yeah.
All right, so let's look. We're in December. I can't believe it. December 2nd. Oh,
I'll fall asleep.
the 9th is the Berkeley holiday.
Okay.
So let's do the 2nd.
The
December 2nd, everyone?
Yeah, that'll be good because it'll be right before all the Christmas craziness hits.
Yes. All right. 7 p.m.
Aaron, you're always welcome to come if Alan allows you to. Text you, same thing. If you if he has your permission.
I've told them they need to come and check out what you do. It's like I feel like Anakin. I got to send them on to Ben Kenobi or Yoda.
Yoda. We'll travel through the universe to find the guitar guru.
Exactly. You know when you find them.
John's right here. You
All
don't
right.
have to go.
Well, thank you all so much again for having me. It was so nice to get to join you all and share some stuff. So I appreciate it, and I want to thank my guys for being here. You guys are awesome. So
You guys are all up.
That's really awesome. Alan, thanks for everything. Aaron, text, thank you.
Michael, Eminem.
Yeah. Dustin, Zach.
Now we have some fun people. MB, Thomas, Copenhagen, Denmark.
Nice.
Thanks for chilling with us, Thomas.
Yeah.
And I will put the links to these books in the YouTube video. Make sure you click on the link if you're in the Zoom so that you will have the info. And we'll see you all next month.
thanks.
Thank you very much.